Hello and welcome back, and today I want to continue talking about a NAS that I first talked about now almost a year ago. I want to talk about the DS1621xs Plus, the brand new 6-bay from Synology. Now, I have talked about this device several times. It's gone through a few iterations. We talked about it during our Q&A with Synology Taiwan. We talked about this device in conjunction with upgrade cards. We talked about it last year at the launch event with everything else, with all those other rack mount solutions they had there. And in fact, with the exception of that giant HD 600, that 60-bay rack mount solution that Synology were looking at developing, this is the last solution that we've still yet to see. This is the brand new 6-bay, which has had a revision since we first talked about it. So if you think you know everything, you don't. They've made one change, which I'm sure the thumbnails already told you. It is that this 6-bay is now 10 GBE. Now this is great news. Synology has always seemingly, up until the last year or so, kept 10 GBE at arm's length a little bit. No one's really been a fan of that, especially me. But it does look like in this 6-bay, we're getting 10 GBE by default. Now, let's talk about this device from the ground up. This 6-bay arrives with a Xeon CPU inside, the D1527. It's a quad-core CPU 2.2 that can be burst up to 2.7 GHz per core. That is a great CPU. Anyone that's been following data storage for the last 2.5 years know that basically Xeon is king as far as it goes because of its efficiency, its adaptability, and its scalability. Some of these Xeon cores, we're seeing now more and more 12 and 16 core Xeons floating around, just like that SA3400 we were talking about recently. Now, this device also arrives with 8 GB of DDR4 ECC memory that can be upgraded all the way to 32 GB, which again, in partnership with that CPU, is a beast. It is a 6-bay and it is utilizing SATA drives. There isn't like a SATA SAS connectors. I'm not sure Synology have ever had a SAS desktop solution here, but it does support the very latest 16 and 18 TB drives, which is great to hear. Of course, you've got companies like Seagate with their Iron Wolf series, and then you've got maybe looking at Exos and Gold series drives for a system like this, where 18 TB is very much on the table. But another great thing about this Xeon-powered NAS with its DDR4 memory and 10 GBE on the rear is that it's NVMe equipped. This has got 2 NVMe bays inside, PCIe Gen 3 x 4 for each of those there, which means in terms of SSD caching, which is of course the way Synology allows people to use NVMe's, you have got the 10 GBE connection on the rear, so 1000 meg potential there, and then internally you've got Xeon working with 6 hard drive bays and those NVMe's for caching as well. So that is an enormous amount of speed potential there. And if you use even 6 standard class drives, you're still looking at 6, 7, maybe even 800 megs output. And the minute you use enterprise class drives, again like those Exos or those Gold, you're looking at 1000 megs output there, even in a RAID 5, maybe even a RAID 6. And when you've got caching on board as well, helping you out there in the background for a lot of your smaller caching background processes, and the benefits of intelligent caching that we're seeing more and more both in DSM 6.2 and proposed in DSM 7 towards the end of the year. This is a very, very functional 6-bay device. Where it sits in the food chain, we're not 100% certain. I mean, it has the same chassis at least as the 2 6-bays, the DS3018xs and the DS1618 Plus. This is kind of a successor, one could say, to the DS3018xs, but at the same time, the architecture is not dissimilar to that of that 12-bay that we always talk about, the DS3617xs. Now, whether there's a new 12-bay, I honestly can't tell you, I have no idea, but this device is a lovely middle ground for a lot of you that looked at the DS3018xs and went, I like it, but it was only a dual-core Pentium. This is a quad-core Xeon, and although it's a CPU that Synology have used a few times before, I would never call this CPU old in a month of Sundays. And obviously Synology have now developed and spent a lot of time getting a lot out of this processor because it has featured a lot of their high-end rack mounts and desktop devices previously. Now, in conjunction with all of this and that potential and that incredible throughput that it brings to the table, the system can also be expanded by 2 more expansion devices, hence the name 1621. You can add 2 5-bay expansions there, and they are the DX517, adding another 10 bays of SATA storage using those 2 JBOD expansions connected to this device. I mean, there's a couple of USB 3 ports you're not really going to use. I'm not really going to talk about those other than general storage and supported peripheral devices. But the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that it's got PCIe as well. There's a PCIe Gen 3 x 8 slot. So let's take a moment there. We've got 10 GBE on board already. You've got 2 1GBEs and 1 10 GBE, that's 10G base T, by the way. When this was first announced, it looked like it was going to be their first entry into 2.5 GBE. Clearly, Synology has looked at the market and gone, no, we're okay to hold up on that for now. But with a 10 GBE port on board and a PCIe slot and their brand new E10 G20 T2 card pretty much out there now, that 2-port 10G card in conjunction with 10G on board means you're looking at, with aggregation, 30 terabytes external potential from this, from 3 connected separate individuals aggregated, or straight through with a supported 2-port to 2-port connection or multi-card to multi-card environment. And again, if you populate this device with SSDs in conjunction with that tiered caching storage system inside, this is going to be a tremendously powerful Synology solution, and compact. It's something we're seeing more and more from them. The last generation, our biggest praise for Synology at that time was that they'd taken a lot of their solutions with the gaps in between that were quite vast and quite close in places, and they managed to create a nice ladder system in their portfolio, with each solution being moderately close to the next, but missing something that you'd have to pay a bit extra for, so it could be scaled accordingly to the budget. So they continued doing that with their system, their system portfolios, but they've gone one step better with this generation, because they're now scaling their systems a lot more into power. Before, it was about scaling it to, if you need features, you have to go up here. But now we're seeing individual tiers within that product portfolio, like the 1520 we talked about earlier this week, and this in the form of the DS1621xs, being kind of a compact powerhouse 10G upgradable solution. It can be upgraded in 3 different ways. It's an XS NAS, so it's got your 5 years of warranty pre-included. It is an enterprise compact powerful product. Now, unfortunately, the things we don't know, the 2 probably most important: release and price. Now, I think we're probably looking at $1,600 to $1,800 for a device like this. That is a pure estimate, just based on the likes of the 6 and the 12 bay I've previously mentioned. But with regards to release, because it's in the 21 series, chances are we're looking at soon, but not hugely soon. I'm willing to bet 1-2 months maybe. You know, we are talking at least out of August, probably more than likely September, October time, but I hope I am wrong. But this has been an update to the DS1621xs Plus. What do you guys think about this? Do you think this is long overdue from Synology, or are you like, yeah, that's about right? I'm genuinely interested in hearing what you've got to say, because this year Synology has really been surprising us with the way they've been catering SSD caching across the myriad of their desktop series. And although we've known a lot about their rack mount solutions this year, we have seen them really go in hard with NVMe on these desktop solutions, and the 1621xs Plus could potentially be the pick of the litter. But you guys let me know what you think. Click like if you've enjoyed this, click subscribe if you want to learn more, and do visit the links in the description to NAS Compare, where we've got a full breakdown of this information, where I'll update as much as I can, and of course links to span.com. I will see you next time.